Hero sections. Every landing page needs one. It's extremely important to get your hero section correct because the hero section answers a couple things. First, what is this page about? And it also gives them a clear direction, a call to action of some sort. So a typical hero section is consisting of just 3 different elements, or 4 if you think about it. First, the headline. The headline has to be a sentence or just a few words that really speaks to the audience. And typically it's the largest element on the page because it's the first thing you want people to read. Then you have a sub-headline, which will go into more details about the page. And then finally, you have a call to action, a button of some sort, or a form field to fill out, or a scroll indicator icon. These are all calls to action, actions we want the user to take. And then we also typically have an illustration or a photograph of some sort that will accompany the hero section. So I'm going to be showing you how to create a hero section with this design right here. And then I'm also going to put you to the task by creating your own hero section based on this existing design right here. Remember, we're early on in this series, so there's a bunch of training wheels that I have on. So we already have the design, the colors, the topography is already set. The question is can you create a cohesive hero section that fits within the context of this layout? Of course, as always, make sure to subscribe and you'll also be able to share it. The instructions for sharing your work that I'll be able to review, like with the other project, are in the description. All right, let's get started.
Alrighty, let's get started here. Working on the hero section, make sure that you clone the Figma Community File, and then you'll have access to what you see right here. So we're going to lesson 2, hero sections, right here. All right, and then we have a challenge where you're going to take this information and create your own hero section afterwards, and I want you to submit it to me. Instructions are below. But before we get to that, let's go ahead and let me just outline how I would, for this particular example right here, create a hero section. And this is the information. There's not much here. So again, a hero section consists of a headline, a sub-headline typically, and a call to action. Sometimes you have multiple, like a primary and a secondary call to action. Right now, we only have one primary call to action, which is called Roof, get it now, okay? A lot of times you'll see like buy now or check out or something like that. And then we have this asset here, an illustration, something that can grab people's attention, some type of visual asset of some sort. And this is what was created with actually Adobe Illustrator's Vector AI generative service, which we'll later on in the course, we'll talk about AI for sure. We're definitely going to have a lesson video on that. So that's our assets. And this is the existing design that I created. It's kind of like a fun design. It's called Frisker. We already have a nav. And then we have kind of like a testimonial section right here of, potential users. And so using this information, the colors, the contrast, the topography, how can we create an effective hero section for this product? So this product actually is a kind of like a pet hairbrush remover or something. And that's basically what we're trying to sell. So it's always very important, what are we trying to sell? So our headline is no more pet hair, all right? It's very simple, 4 words. We can make this thing big. That's what we want, visual hierarchy. The headline is the first thing that a person needs to read, and the way we ensure that it's the first thing is typically through scale, the font size, okay? So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Now, we're using 2 fonts here. One is called Concert 1, this one right here. It's kind of like a rounded font, and then we're using a real typical font called Poppins, which is a sans serif font, and it's kind of like an inter font like that, just real super simple, clean font that works well paired with other fonts as well. So let's just take our Frisker logo right here, and we're going to replicate it by Alt and left clicking and drag down, and we're going to put in no more pet hair, exclamation point. Okay, so this right here is really small for a headline, right? Like that is way too small. This lacks visual hierarchy. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to boost up the scale, the size of this thing. And we do that over here, right where it says 43. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to put in 100. All right, now let's expand this out. And by the way, you see how we can collapse this? If you don't want that, if you only want it to be one line, you click on this button, this icon right here. So notice how now it's all the way extended out. But then again, if we wanted to, we can drag this right back in. So I'm going to show you two different approaches for setting up a hero section or creating a layout. There's more than two, but I don't want this to be an extra long video. You can lay anything out as you wish, as long as you adhere to those few key principles, meaning A, the headline is very obvious. It's the first thing they're going to read, and it clearly communicates the idea. And as long as those elements, those 4 or 5 elements, the call to action, the subheadline, the headline, or 3 or whatever, as long as those are easy to read and it makes logical sense in terms of how you're positioning them, then you can just position this stuff however you wish. So here's a real common 2-column approach for a hero section. On the left, I'm going to have the hero or the headline, the subheadline underneath, and then a call to action. And on the right, we'll have the actual dog graphic. So I'm going to increase this just a little bit more. No more pet hair. Let's expand this out. Notice this is big, this is large. Another thing that we can also adjust, and you may or may not want to adjust this based on the font that you're using in the future, and that would be this right here. So it is going to be the line height. So if this value right here, that one. So if you take your keyboard up arrow key, you can just, in selecting it, you can just modify this as you wish. I'd say right around here looks pretty good. You don't want it to be too far away, the lines of text, and you don't want it to be too close. Okay, so no more pet hair. That's looking pretty good right there. And again, alignment, where are we aligning this? Well, there is a invisible, if you will, guide that's shown up. So here's the guide right here, or a grid. So we have that right there. And these right here are actually kind of offset and not right. So I didn't utilize that. So we would want to take these cards right here and push them over here to the left. I'm going to take these elements as well. This is just a quick design I did. And then we want to get this one over here as well, pushed over here to the right. Of course, we'll get that centered up as well, and then fix this as well. Okay, so now that everything adheres to these guides, I'll go ahead and hide that. Now let's go ahead and put in a subheadline, which is the world's best pet hairbrush. Okay, so what do we want to do this time? Do we want to use the same font? I mean, we could try. We could also try using Poppins as well. But let's just use the same font for now. And so I'm going to specify the world's best pet hairbrush. Okay. Now, clearly, we cannot leave it like this, and we can't leave it like this either. This is lacking typographic visual hierarchy. We have a headline and a subheadline. 99 times out of 100, you want these things to be situated so that the headline is bigger and the subheadline is smaller. So I'm going to do, let's just do something like 30. Oopsie. It didn't work. 30. Why are you not allowing me to modify the font size? Oh, well, I'll just use my keyboard down arrow key. Sometimes things just get a little bit strange. The world's best pet hairbrush. Let's make this white as well. Okay, that's cool. And again, we're making sure we're aligning it on the same column. This right here works. Let's try changing it to this type up here, this font called Poppins. Here, oops, I think I just spit on my, oh boy. Oh, I think there's an issue with my keyboard right now. I dropped it, and it's just like randomly hitting letters and stuff. That's awesome. Anyhow, I'm going to change this to Poppins. Please let it work. Pop. There we go. The world's best pet hairbrush. This works as well. It's completely fine. Notice how much smaller this is. 144 versus 37. I mean, this is a significant difference. That's what we want. We want a big difference between our headline and our subheadline. And you could tell a different color. They don't always have to be a different color, but I'm choosing to do that. And these are things that will really affect the visual hierarchy. So that works well right there. Finally, we have a call to action. Roof, get it now. And for now, I think I'll just, we'll use this font again. See how it's like always hitting the W? Here, let me just hit it a few times and maybe it'll stop. That's not cool. Here, well, I guess what I'll do is this. We're just gonna grab that, copy it, come over here, paste it. There we go. Kind of solve that issue. Let's see if I can specify that font, which was called Concert 1. All right, so Concert. Oh my God. I can't believe this has happened. Oh well. Now for our button, again, our call to action button really needs to stand out on its own. All right, so I'm gonna make it a little bit larger. Roof, get it now. And you know what I might do is make this all title case. So the way you can do that, I cannot believe this is happening. The way you can do that is to select it. You come over here with these little 3 dots. It gives you extra options right here, and we'll choose this one right here, uppercase. That will automatically just make it uppercase. Then we're gonna take a frame, hit the F key, and then just wrap it around this because this is gonna be an actual button in this case. And we're gonna give it a fill. And typically, your primary color will be the background color of your button for your primary call to action. Now I say typically because there's no rule saying that you have to do that. Sometimes you may not want this, but more often than not, this is the typical pattern. And I'm showing you a pretty typical way to set up a hero section. So I'm just gonna grab this with the eyedrop tool, and then we're gonna give this some rounded corners. So this is completely straight edge corners. The feel of this particular layout with the rounded font right here would really make sense to also make this rounded. So we can round the corners coming up here, left clicking and dragging and pulling it right. And you see how it adds rounded corners to our button right there. All right, so now with both of those selected, we can choose auto layout, and that will almost get it centered up. And if it doesn't, it's simply because of this issue right here. Now, if I select this middle option right here, now what this does is it aligns things to the middle. And then if I adjust this, it's still not working correctly. So now what we can do is we can get access to all the padding size by clicking this button. So we have top and then bottom right here. So zooming out, it looks like we can add more to the bottom. So if I just use my keyboard up arrow key and add 8 to it, now things look much more centered up. Now additionally, do we want to use white text? Maybe we'll use this dark text. That is way more obvious in this context. So right there, that's pretty good. And notice, I didn't just randomly place these on here. Notice how there's not an equal amount of white space between these elements. And the way we can visualize this is to get out the rectangle tool, R. And you can see that's pretty much the distance between these two elements. And then if we replicate that, Shift, Alt, and down, and drag this down, you can see there's much more white space underneath it. And that's grouping. It makes sense in this context to take the headline and the subheadline and make them positioned, vertically speaking, in terms of white space, closer together. Then we push this down further. This is a very common pattern, and it makes sense to keep the stuff that you're reading a little bit closer together, and then the thing that is an actionable, the call to action, let it sit by itself. Give it room to breathe on its own, because it is the most important element. It's the one thing that we want them to click the most, all right? So now that we have our left column done, then we can just take this guy, Alt, left click and drag over just to replicate it. And we can just put this character right here, right there. And I would probably put it under here because it looks kind of strange being cut off on top of this element. But if we just take our left bracket key, it'll put that to the very bottom, and now it's underneath this. And this actually looks pretty solid. Now you might be wondering, what about the edge over here? Doesn't this have to stay within that, the actual confines of the layout? So if I bring this back, you'll see it extends out. When it comes to illustrations and like watermarks or background patterns or just unimportant elements, it's okay to extend outside of that container, all right? It's not a big deal. In fact, we could even, if I hide this, If we wanted to make this larger, we could have it cut off. You can do that. It's fine. I'm going to leave this right here, and I think that's a good potential. That's a very standard hero section. All right, very typical. Now, what if we wanted to do something more unique, which I'm a fan of? All right, so let's say, for instance, we want to have this character in the middle. All right, so I'm going to scale them down a little bit. And then we'll take no more, and maybe we'll put these on 2 lines and right align it. Let's get rid of that space. So we have no more, and then we're going to replicate that, Shift-Alt, and then pet hair. And then we're going to left align this one. And we're going to make sure that these are lined perfectly together. Now it looks kind of like there's different line height between some of these. I'm not sure how that happened, so let's just look at these. Yeah, that's very strange. So it looks like there's more line height between no more has like more line height compared to this one, but they're the same values. I don't know what's happening there. Sometimes things like that can happen. Not a big deal. I'm not too concerned about it. No more pet hair. I think we can make it a little bit smaller. Move it up. Okay. Now we have some work to do though. We're making something kind of interesting. We'll see how it pans out here in a second. I'm going to take all this stuff and we're going to move it down. All right. So the world's best pet hairbrush. Let's take this and make that capital. And I think we're also going to use, well, no, let's make this bold instead. And then I'm going to just take the frame and we're going to wrap, make it look like it's in a button container, but it's not a button. And I will add a background to it. So we're going to add a fill. And it's going to we're going to grab the background color it's currently sitting on, just make it slightly lighter. That's it. Slightly lighter, give it rounded corners. And to make this a little bit more interesting, we can even do this. We could rotate it slightly. Put it on top. And that way it kind of hides the fact that it's cut off. So it's coming out from this little rotated area. And you can rotate text. That's achievable within, front-end development. So now we could take roof, get it now. We could just put it right here, make sure it's on the top, like that. Then we'll bring this back up. And we could push this here possibly. And I think our roof get it now button should be a lot larger. So let's increase that. Now, if I set this button up right, that wouldn't have been an issue with auto layout, but we're going to get to that stuff later in this course, in this series, if you will. Okay. So we need to make sure this is centered. This should be centered as well. This character should be centered. Okay. Roof, get it now. I think what we can do is probably move things up. There's a lot of white space right here, so I'm going to move this up just a bit. Move this up. Perhaps we could put this right there. Okay. And no more pet hair. One of the things that you need to be aware of is color affecting your visual hierarchy. So that means our call to action, it's the one thing that we really want to stand out the most. And when they're both the same color, that can kind of take away. When your headline is the same color as the button background from your call to action, that can kind of take a little bit of emphasis away from it because it's the same color and they're both very large. So we could take this and make this white. And I could maybe add an exclamation point right there. My W key. I think I'm going to have to get a new keyboard because I literally just dropped the hell out of it before recording. All right. So now if I take this up and move it, we have two different layouts utilizing the same dog asset. And this one obviously is more unique. We could really do some cool stuff with this. We can make the dog kind of come up here and animate with CSS or prototyping. And we're going to definitely get into that stuff later on in this series. But there's a lot of cool stuff that we can do. But here's the bottom line. We have a strong call to action or headline. It is the biggest element. And we've established that through visual hierarchy. We also have our subheadline, which is clear to read, and our call to action, and a relatable asset, if you will, that works well for our hero section. Now that we have that, and by the way, like I wanted to reiterate, there would be more other ways to situate this. I only showed you 2. So there's a lot more. I'm not going to do another one, but another one that comes up like off the top of my head is if we just extend this down a little bit further and move this stuff down. And we take this guy right there, and then we take no more pet hair, line this here. Unfortunately, because of my keyboard issue, this may not work. I can't believe no more pet hair. There we go. It worked. Okay. So, we could do this as well. We could center this. This is a real common pattern. We could make it one line like this. So we center this up. All this stuff is centered as well. This is another possible iteration that could work. All right. So going back, let's now focus on, it's your turn basically, to utilize everything I just talked about to integrate the headline, the next generation's drums. So this is a fictional service for like fake drums that musicians can use in their music or something like that. They're called virtual instruments, VSTs. And so this is a sub-headline that I want you to use. The call to action is get drum synth, which is the fictional name. And then we have this fake AI generated little screen of just some fictional like audio software. It looks crazy. And all you have to do is alt left click and drag this up in here in the hero section. And it's up to you in terms of how you want to situate this. If you want to put it down here, that's fine. If you want to put it in the center and then, work your headline and subheadline stuff around it. If you want to push it off over here on the side, this is fine as well. Even if it's cut off, it's not a big deal. Just understand that's an asset. I want you to be able to work with it and integrate it somehow. So it's up to you if you want to be real creative in here. I would really suggest just try to make things as simple as possible. Make a strong, large headline. Make sure things are aligned properly, good white space, good contrast, good color, and you can't go wrong. All right, so then what I want you to do, just like with the last video, is once you're done with this, make sure, by the way, I will take all these and add this right here. Make sure that you run through all these, all right? Your visual hierarchy, your contrast, color, alignment, white space, grouping. Oh yeah, I forgot to add typography. You wanna make sure, am I even gonna be able to type it? Come on, there we go. You want to make sure you're asking yourself and you're comparing, like every single element, is the visual hierarchy well? Is the contrast well? Color, alignment, white space, grouping, typography. And then just take this and replicate that each time that you are confident that those are all working well. All right, so once you're done, click share, click copy link, then go to x.com, or you can join the Discord server in the 30-day UI UX channel. And when you go to x.com, if I bring this back up, all you have to do is paste that in. All right, and then mention me. You could follow me first, rather than mentioning me, the most important part is to put in 30 days UI UX, this tag right here. And then you can also mention me at DesignCourse.com and follow me and all that good stuff. Now, people already have done this for the very first challenge, which is yesterday's challenge or the day before, depending on when I upload this. And people have already been adding this to me. So this is cool. All right. So I look really forward to seeing everything that you all come up with. And yeah, I'll see you tomorrow with another new video. Let's do it.